Let's actually dive right in. I want to actually lay the groundwork here. So oftentimes here at The Fool, one of the most frequently asked questions that we get when it comes to the marijuana industry is this really legit? Is this a legit industry? Is this really just, the sketchy corner dispensary down the street? Is there really some legs to this industry? What can you guys tell us about what the marijuana industry is all about, what it's made up of? What can you give the listeners?
Anyone want to jump in? Keith?
I can jump in, and you guys can jump in after me. It is legitimate. Obviously, there's some sketchy players out there, so you have to beware. But it's very legitimate. But I think the thing everyone needs to realize, we're really talking about two different markets here. You've got the medical marijuana market, you've got the recreational marijuana market. They're quite different. And, obviously, medical marijuana has been legal in several countries already. It's been legal in Canada for a while. It's been legal in quite a few states. I think we're up to 30 states now, plus D.C. And then on the recreational side in the U.S., you've got 9 states now that have legalized it. I think Michigan is voting in November.
Got 2 states voting.
Yeah, 2 states voting. Michigan is one of the big ones. And the latest I saw, the polls look like it's probably going to pass. Correct. So we're going to have more states. Of course, the other thing to remember is that it's still illegal at the federal level in the U.S. And then the other aspect I think you have to look at is that there are different geographies involved. A lot of times, all the hype right now is Canada. And, Canada is a big market. And you just mentioned, Shannon, the market for recreational marijuana opens up in just a few days, and everybody's anxious to see how that's going to turn out. But they've had medical marijuana legal for several years now. You've got Germany that legalized medical marijuana last year, and that's a very big market. They're the largest population in the European Union, so that's an important market. But we can't leave out the good old USA. The U.S. currently, from the latest information I saw, it accounts for 85% of total marijuana sales in the world.
Wow.
Right? Everybody's talking about Canada. The U.S. is where it's at, even though it's still illegal at the federal level. Even a few years from now, obviously Germany's going to grow, Europe's going to grow, Canada's going to grow. Even in a few years from now, the U.S. is still going to account for probably 3/4 of all marijuana sales. So, you have to look at all of this. And so when you see all the Canadian stocks getting all the hype, the bigger market is right here at home.
And really, the Canadian market is pretty small fish in the big sea. I think that even with medical marijuana having been around in Canada available, you're still not talking about a ton in sales, maybe $1 billion, I think is what they're predicting for 2019. I think totally combined, including recreational, maybe you get $5 to $7 billion or something like that. The global marijuana market is $150 billion if you include, of course, the black market. So yeah, there's a major chance to disrupt. I agree with you, Keith, that I think that this is a real industry, and there's a lot of disruption going on here. If you are a listener that's just kind of you're new to the whole marijuana thing. What the heck is this whole marijuana thing about? Maybe just a little bit of background. So we're talking about cannabis, right? Cannabis sativa is the plant. You may be familiar with hemp, which is a type of cannabis sativa. Hemp has been used industrially for about 7,000 years. And matter of fact, was a major product that was, or ingredient, if you will, for things like rope and paper and everything back in the colonial times. Matter of fact, you used to be able to pay your tax bill, Sean. Used to be able to pay it in cannabis seeds, which is kind of cool. Yes, you could go into your local government and pay your tax.
Didn't George Washington grow hemp?
And Thomas Jefferson set aside some of the best land he had.
Yeah. I'm going to have to see what my state says about that.
Yeah. Today, probably not so much, But what we're talking about with marijuana is the female plant, and we're talking about the bud of the female plant. That's the dried flower that people think of as when they're talking about the commodity part of the marijuana business. And I'm sure that we'll chat a little bit about the differences between the commodities and not. But you are going to have 2 very distinct markets, and that's going to be the commodity. I'm growing, say, tobacco, or I'm growing wheat, or I'm growing whatever it is I'm growing. And then you're going to have the finished good market, or the value add market, however you want to refer to it. And those are going to be the things like, oils, cannabis oils and CBD and those kind of things. And then to your point, Keith, you have this whole separate market, which could be theoretically very large in the medical marijuana space. And most likely, we're talking about prescription medical marijuana.